Alrighty then. One moment. Let's see, how many people are awake in Europe? I'm just gonna wait a little bit. What should we start with? Oh, Jesus Christ. My phone's going crazy. What should we start with? Going to be covering a lot today. A lot. Part 2 of Chamsys Basics. Doing a part 2 because I think I may have missed some things or maybe not explained things as well as I could have. So yes, part 2 of Basics. I put all the things I'm going to cover in the description because I decided to kind of organize my streams a bit more. So yes, today we're going to be looking at a lot of stuff. Cuestack Macros. I did a stream a few hours ago where I went over some stuff like that, but I'm doing this one again just because everyone's awake now, maybe, hopefully. Good morning, by the way. I know it's like 9 or 8 over there. So yes, good morning. Sorry for starting this so early in the morning for you guys. It's pretty late at night for me. So yes, today I'm going to be looking at a lot of stuff. So we're going to be looking at Cuestack Macros and some different ways of using them, as well as keyboard macros. I'm not going to really go into too much depth on those unless anyone asks. Because you can go, yeah, we'll see. If anyone specifically asks me to cover keyboard macros and the macro window as well as the automation window, I can cover that. But that will probably be either, if no one asks, I'll just do it at the end of the stream. So yeah, Cuestack Macros, Cuestack Macros, keyboard macros, making fixture profiles. What else did I say I was going to cover? A lot of stuff. Bitmaps, how to create them, how to use them. I'm not going to be going into Photoshop unless you guys want me to. I can, but because you can pretty much make bitmaps with any image editing program. You can also get some online. I know there's a few already made bitmaps out there. See, I'm just going to bring up my checklist here. I had a few questions on the last stream about stuff like what modes I run my show in. I'll answer those as well. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, looking at the output window and how you can use it to improve programming for effects and stuff like that. It's a very powerful window, and there's a lot of different uses you can use for it. And it's not that complicated. It's pretty easy to set up. And once it's set up, it's a breeze. So I'll cover that because it not only is it good for creating effects and things like that, it's also amazing for troubleshooting. If you're having problems, if for some reason the board's not outputting DMX or something like that, it's really useful for that. Just so you can check off things as you're troubleshooting. And I'm also going to go over fixing tracking and palettes. So I already fixed these colors in the last stream, but you'll see, if you look here, you'll see this is a tracking issue with these palettes, and it just means that there's a difference in the fixtures or the data that's in these palettes here. Yes, so just the basic explanation of why this happens. So this is the first. We'll just say this is the first palette, right? If I hit this palette, oh, that one works. All right. So the reason this one turns off when I click this one is because this one has all the same or more attributes and attributes and fixtures than this one. And the reason this one still stays on is because this palette right here doesn't have the same amount of information as this one. So it might be that there's more fixtures in one of the palettes than the other. It might be that one of the palettes doesn't have like a pan position for one of the fixtures. It's most likely that there's something wrong with the amount of fixtures that are in these palettes, because a lot of them are doing it. Ooh, that's weird. But yes. Yes, see? That's why this one's not working. This set position right here, the reason it's doing it is because it's missing these wash lights here. It's missing these ones right here. And so that's why it's doing that. But I'll go over that in more detail later. I'm not really expecting that many people to join this early, because it is early in the morning for the majority of people watching. So yes, good morning. And I guess we'll get started soon. In like 3 minutes we'll get started. Let's see. Patch. It's been a while. Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to cover, I'm not going to go too in depth with the fixture profile creation, just because it's a whole other thing. But I'll just go over, like, if you're using the same fixtures over and over again and you want to add different palettes to automatically import into the show file, so stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I've nope. Yeah, this one's missing some stuff, so that's perfect. I'll get to explain a little bit. All right. So first one probably be Cuestack Macros. No, that's just normal macros, right? Cuestack Macros are pretty useful. Sorry, just thinking whether or not I should wait a little bit longer. I probably started this stream a little bit too early, but oh well. If anyone's wondering about why is that one colored? Huh. Oh yeah, because I was testing it. That's right. One of the new features added in, I think it's the latest version, or one of the latest versions. It's in beta. One of the beta versions allows you to add color tags to playbacks, which is really cool and useful. It's more of a look thing, but yeah, it's neat. And I'm pretty sure on the MQ500 it changes the LED that's on the playbacks. I don't know enough about the MQ500 to know what those LEDs look like. Is it like an MA3 thing where the entire fader lights up? I don't know. If it is, awesome. One step ahead of MA3. Anyways, so we'll start with Cuestack Macros. These are really useful, and when you're doing stuff with Cuestack Macros, I highly recommend having a tab open with the manual that has the chart for all of the macros. I always do when I'm working with them, just because that way you can see what macros there is, and see what they do. I'll actually link the page for that in the chat, just to make life easy. It's down near the bottom of the page, but it shows you all of the macros and their functions. Right, so so a good example of Cuestack macros is in this case right here, these hazers right here. I have a special system that I've been using for a while. Basically lets me have turn the hazers on for 10 seconds, and then it automatically turns them off. So if I go over to my execute window and my faders page, where all of my hazers are, sometimes you don't really have enough time to be going through the windows, because most of the time when I'm running a show and I'm in the main window, I don't want to have to go to this window and spend too much time in it. So I don't want to really have to play with these faders too much if I'm kind of in a hurry. So that's what these 10-second buttons are for. They're kind of self-explanatory. It turns on the hazer in this instance, this button will turn on this hazer for 10 seconds. The way I set up my hazers is these two buttons are exactly the same. They're the same Q stack. Oh, I have to close that because it'll just stay there if I don't close it. These two are the exact same Q stacks. As you can see, it's 181 and 181 as well. It's just this one is a fader and this one's a button. The reason I do that is because I can change the levels with the fader, but if I want to turn it off, I can just hit the button, or maybe if I just want to turn it on to full, I can hit the button as well. So it's pretty useful. That way, if I just want to real quick turn on the hazer without having to manipulate the fader, I can just hit the button. Or maybe I just want to turn off the hazer because something's going wrong, I can just hit the button. So this 10-second button right here is a good use, not a good use, I guess maybe, a good use of Cuestack macros, because that's how it runs. It basically turns on the hazer for 10 seconds and then turns it off. So the great thing about this is I can be working in my main window here, and I can go to my faders page, turn on the hazer for 10 seconds, go back and forget about it. And so that just lets me add a little bit of replenish the haze in the room if I need to. And if I need to add more haze, I can again just use the fader. But if I'm really in a hurry and I just need some more haze, I'll just hit the 10-second button and get back to what I was doing. And so I have the same setup for these three hazers. Obviously, not every show has 3 hazers. These are just here for, usefulness, I guess. I never delete them or do anything with them. They always stay there. If I have a show that only has 1 hazer, no big deal. I just don't need to update or do anything with these ones. I just update this one. So here's the section for those. I can't move them, and I'll explain why right now. So here's how those buttons work. Well, I guess first, before I actually explain these, I should just kind of explain how Cuestack macros work. So let's just record an empty Cuestack here. So there's nothing in this Cuestack, but we'll go in, and you'll see right here the macro tab. And so let's say you want to turn on playback 10. Let's say you just want to activate playback 10, right? So the macro for that is A. If you just, like I said, there's a chart on the manual that shows you what each letter means, or each macro does. So A activates a playback. So we're going to go and do A10. And so when I activate this Cuestack, it's going to activate this playback. See? Perfect. So let's say you want to activate this playback at a certain level. So let's say you want to activate it at like 50%. Then you can go /50, and there you go. It'll go to 50%. So the first number is the playback, and the second number, if you have to put a slash first, but the second number would be the percentage of the intensity you want that playback to go at. So let's just turn this off and do it again. Now, you can't really see it, but if I go to the Outputs tab, you'll see all of these are at 50%. Now, the only thing now is when I release this Q stack, it doesn't release the playback. So in order to kind of fix that, you would just have to add a second Q and make it release this playback if you wanted to do that. So the release macro is, I think, R. Yes, it's R. So we'll just R10, and that will release playback 10. Now the only problem now is when I activate this Q stack, it won't go past the first Q. So to change that, you just go to View Options, Activate Release, and then you set Release Executes Last Step to Yes. Now, if I use this, I can activate it, and then when I release it, it will release that playback. Alright, so that's kind of the basics of Cuestack macros. Every macro works pretty much the same. Their functions vary quite a lot. So, for example, if you're the kind of operator that likes to go through different pages and have different pages for your effects on the playbacks, but you want to be able to control those pages from your execute window, you can really easily do that by having just a bunch of empty Q stacks. And let's go into this one, and you just, let's say we want this Q stack to go to page 1, right? So you just do P1 and it'll go to page 1. So let's just rename this to page 1, and then button. This one will go to page 2, and this one we'll just call it P3, right? And so we can go to each of these. We'll go this one, do P2, and this one P3. So now, if you look down here, this is the page number and the name of the page. I have these named from, because this show file is recycled from a few old show files. So now if I hit this button, you'll see it changes the page. So these buttons will now change the page, and you can just copy these to your execute window, and you can solo them. Oh, yeah, there you go. So now these buttons work to change the page you're on. So might not be useful to you, might be useful to some people. Everyone has kind of a different style. Some people like to page around a lot, some people don't. It all depends on what you like to do. I don't, so I'm just going to delete those. So now let's look at these. So we'll look at this button right here. This is the button I pressed that's on the execute window. So there's two macros in here, and it's the E macro. E means activate, so it activates a certain Q stack. So this is activating Cuestack 194 and Cuestack 181. So now if we look, Cuestack 181 is this one, and Cuestack 194 is this one. So when I hit this button, you'll see it activates both of these Q stacks, but after 10 seconds, you'll see all of them turn off. There you go. That's because, oh, damn it. That's because this one right here is doing all the work. So when this Q stack gets activated, it activates a 10-second fade. And after that 10-second fade, it triggers these macros here. And these basically release those three Q stacks. One thing to note is that I put, you see here it says F194, that means release Cuestack 194. And you'll see here it's basically just releasing itself. Now you have to make sure if you're releasing a Q stack and you have other macros that you release a Q stack last, if that makes sense. Because if I put release 194 first in line, then it'll release itself and it won't trigger the rest of the macro because it's already released itself. I've put a third Q here. It doesn't do anything, it just makes sure Chamsys doesn't crash. One thing to note if you're doing a replica of this is to make sure the second Q has halt set to no. So just to do a once over, when I hit this button it activates both of these, and then once this is done, it's 10 seconds, it will go to the second Q which releases all three. and this Q stack right here is one that actually contains the intensity control for the hazer. So I just duplicate that for all 3 of my hazers, and that's that. One thing to note is that I can't, once these are here, I can't move them unless I want to update all of the Q stacks, because if I move this timer here, this won't work anymore, because the macro in this Q stack is activating 194, right? And there's nothing there anymore because I moved it. So one thing to keep in mind is to make sure if something's not working, make sure their macros are actually referencing the Q stacks you want them to reference. Because like I said, if you move any of these, the Q stacks won't work anymore, or the macros won't work anymore. So you can do quite a lot with these. I've made a color picker completely based off of Q stacks and macros, Cuestack Macros. It was ridiculous. And I've never used it. It took forever to make, but I never used it. But you can do quite a lot of things with Cuestack Macros. Oh, keyboard just died. Maybe. Oh, it's back. Wonderful. And this button right here, this Haze It button, it's a pretty special button because it's on the main page. You can see it right here. And what it does is it activates all 3 of these timers. So it doesn't activate the timers themselves, it just activates the buttons, because the buttons will activate the timers and everything else as well. So you'll see, there we go, it activates all of them. And this Haze button, this Haze Q stack itself also has a 10-second timer in it, and it releases itself when it's done. That way the button will turn off once all of them are turned off, and you'll see that in a sec, or 10 seconds. There we go. So now they're all off. So you can use this however you'd like. It's really, you can kind of create features with macros, if that makes sense. Like this is kind of creating a feature, if that makes sense. I don't have to, because it's not really a built-in thing for Chamsys to have 10-second timers for things. So you can kind of make your own features with macros. Next, we'll look at the Output tab, because the Output tab is really, really useful. So there's a few different sections of the Output tab, and we'll go over all 3. So there's the View Heads, View Channels, and View Plan. So let's start with the View Heads. This shows you every attribute for all of your lights, and what its current state is in. And this is super useful because if you're trying to troubleshoot, my God, I cannot talk today. If you're trying to troubleshoot something that's not working, or you don't know, for any reason, if something's not working the way it's supposed to, you can come here and look to see what's going on and what's being output. This is more for if something's being output that's not right, or if you're not getting output to your rig or anything. That way you can actually see if it's a software issue or if it's a hardware issue. Like so if for some reason DMX isn't outputting from the desk, you can check here. So let's say I didn't have any DMX outputting. I could check here to see if it was just something going on with MagicQ instead of the console, because here I could check, oh okay, it should be outputting from the software is outputting, the console's outputting, so it must be something with the hardware. And as you can see all of the different attributes. Here's the cyan, magenta, yellow attributes for the CMY. It just shows all the attributes for every fixture. So if you have something going on that's not supposed to be going on, you can check here to see what's going on. Right. And over here, the View Channels tab, you can make do a few different things. You can check the DMX here. This is another troubleshooting thing where you can see what's being output. So you can see everything in red is an intensity, everything in green I think might be a position. I would have to check. Let's test it. Yep, everything in green is a position. Yellow should be colors, and everything else is just other stuff. So this is, you can go through the different universes here and see what's going on. So this is another thing, if your console's not outputting to the stage, you can come here and see, oh okay, something's going on, maybe my shutter is closed or something like that. Oh, what's this? Must be it's the names of the channels. Cool, that's new. Alright, the most important, there's a few different, actually before I go to the plans tab, there's a few different tabs here. They all do different things. It's really about just kind of messing around and seeing what they do. This one shows you the positions for all the moving lights. So if I put an effect on it, go back, you can see everything. Good lord, everything's going crazy. I don't really know how why this is here, but it's here. So you can see, yeah, here you can see. So if for example you don't have an effect working, you can come here and see if it's actually, if the positions are actually changing, and it also looks cool. And here you can see all your intensities. You can also change these, the way these are laid out. You can view the names of everything, and it'll just show you the intensity of everything. If you have DMX being input into your console, you can see that as well. So just boop boop. Let's go to view plan, because this is the most useful, I think. I mean, they're all useful, but this is ridiculously useful. So you can make a grid of all of your fixtures that are in the your lighting rig, and especially for like making symmetrical effects and stuff like that, it's super useful. So you can, it takes a little bit of time to put everything in a grid and make it look nice, but once it's done, and it just makes life really easy. So to actually make a grid is it's pretty similar to the execute grid, or the execute window. You just set the width and height, and then you can have, I think, you can have a lot of grids. I can't remember how many though. And so what you do is you can take a group. Let's not take that one, that's way too big. Let's take this one. So you can go to your groups window, select a group, and it will show up all the fixtures that are in that group will show up here. Oh wait, these are not in order. Let's fix that. There we go. There we go. So now I can take these, hit move, and then move them here, and make a grid like that. And so you can, if you just bring all your fixtures in, and you can, with your design, if you have a plot or something like that, you can just put everything in its place, if that makes sense. So if, let's say I just want a grid for my beams. Oh wait, no, I have way too many beams. Let's do it for the beams that are on the side. So let's see, I've got 6 by 6 and 6 by 6. So what I'm going to do, because these ones are on vertical poles, I'm going to just set them up like this. And if I want, I can just bring it in closer. We'll just do that. I can bring this, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do 6 by 5. And there we go. Now it's up close. And if I go here, you can see it's all big, and you can select all of these fixtures from the grid, which is extremely useful. And another thing you can do is, if I go to this one, you can select grids, or you can select fixtures from their row. So if I click right here, you'll see all the fixtures in this row get selected. This is a bit more, it's easier to see. Let's just zoom in a little bit. It's easier to see when you can actually see the grid, but here we go. So if I hit this right here, it'll select everything underneath it. Same goes for the side ones. You can select fixtures from the sides. Don't think you can, yeah, it only works with this side and this side. So this is pretty useful when you're trying to, if you're doing like color swipes and stuff like that, and you have this plan set up so that it's all aligned, then you can just go, you can select all these fixtures like this, and then select your color and just repeat. So you can go boop, 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 boop. Oh, missed one. You can do that, and that way it makes it really, really easy to do symmetrical stuff. Because as you just saw, I just selected this entire row and it's from left to right. Doing it manually would just be a pain in the ass. You can also put multi-element or multi-head fixtures in these grids too. Do keep in mind that when you do put them in, they'll take up a lot of space. So let me open another show file just to demonstrate that. Oh, I know what show file is good. I can find it. There we go. Here we go. So this right here is a grid of a bunch of LED bars. Yep, there we go, bars. And you can see here, so there's 8 elements in these bars, and you can see the number on top, right? So this is the first bar, and it's everything beneath it is all of its elements. So you can see there's 10 bars here. Good lord, there we go. And now if I bring this up, this is one group of bars, but if I put an effect on it, there we go, you can see the effect going through all of the elements. Let's try this one. I don't know what these do because, well, that looks neat. So you can apply the effects like this and see what they look like. If you're like doing color effects, you can see how they apply to the fixtures. So let's go back. All right. Yeah. Yes, so that's the, you can also test heads from this window as well, which is pretty useful. So if you need to test different fixtures, you can just select them from here and it'll turn them on. And another thing you can do with this grid is you can apply pixel map effects over top of it. So you can treat this grid of fixtures as kind of like a video wall or a screen, if that makes sense. So actually I can demonstrate it, maybe. Let's go to color. There. So you can see that media has been applied to this whole grid. I guess not those. And if I apply an effect to it, just do a horizontal rainbow, you'll see there it goes. It's applying to that entire grid. So if you have some like special video content, you can play it over this grid. Won't go into that because that's just a whole other, oof, it's a lot. Let's see. Ooh, tired. Okay. Yes, okay, someone asked me on the last stream a few questions, and I'll answer them now. So, what mode do I run in for programmers, for my programmer? up. Let's see, what mode do I run in? Yeah. Yeah, so I don't like having everything reset when the intensity goes down, so it doesn't. Oh yeah, you can do some random stuff, but for programming, usually you just you don't really want things resetting when you're running a show, because it just ruins the flow, if that makes sense. Because the stuff you previously had is kind of like a backup in case you miss something, you know. So you know, if I have a color, let's see, effects page. If I have a color activated and I hit clear, that color's still going to be there, and that's fine, because you know it's just a backup. That way I don't just have a bunch of white lights, you know, unless I want to. But yes, no, nothing really resets, nothing really stomps either. You can set your show file to stomp stuff, but I don't, because I don't like using stomp. If you don't know what stomp is, it's basically, so if you have like a position effect, or what's a better way of explaining this? I don't know. That's Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't really know a good way of explaining stomping. Basically, let's say you have an effect open on your playbacks. So you have a position effect activated. If you activate another position effect, the new position effect will deactivate the old one. I just don't use it because everything in my MagicQ windows are soloed already, and most of it's all palettes, anyways. And all of my effects are soloed, so none of my movement. I guess you could kind of say that my effects stomp each other, but it's just soloed. And I just think solo is a bit more reliable than stomping, because I know that when I hit this one, it's definitely going to deactivate everything else. It just makes life easier. Global tap to time, that's right. The reason I use global tap to time and I don't have a tap to time on the touchscreen is because there's a few reasons. So my effects are always activated anyways. So when I hit tap to time, it will update the effects I have running. I do agree that it's kind of annoying, because when I hit tap to time, it's only going to update the active effects. It's not going to update any of the non-active effects, which is kind of annoying in case I want to if I want to switch effects in the middle of a song. It's pretty annoying because most of the effects will have different BPMs. But yeah, like if I'm doing a build-up or something like that, all of my effects are already activated, so I can tap to time before I show the effect. So like I'll have my size faders at 0, and I'll switch. Let's say I just want to do an odd even effect. I can tap to time and set the time for that effect, and nothing will happen, because I mean, the color size it will update the BPM for that effect, but you know, the effect isn't being output because the size fader is at 0. And the reason I don't like using the tap to times for the MagicQ windows is because I don't like doing tap to time on a touchscreen. I'm a pretty tactile guy, and it's just it hasn't been that big of a deal for me so far with the global tap to time. Color swipes using one-shot effects. There is a reason why I don't do them. I can't remember why. I'm fairly sure the reason is because if it would just interfere with all of my color effects. You are right in saying, because the thing with one-shot effects is that you can pretty easily morph them from a rig to another rig, because it's just an effect. And with the color swipes I have now, I basically have to go through each fixture, or not each fixture, but each row, and just update the Cuestack manually. and it is a pain in the ass, but at the end of the day, I know it's not going to mess with any of my color effects. Might be different though. Sending my intensity effects to specific groups. So it's really simple. The way my intensity effects works is just like my other effects. They won't output unless I have the intensity fader up for the intensity effects. Now, the way I selectively do it on groups is I just use my intensity faders. So if I do this, if I have none of my intensities up, and I have my intensity effects size up, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to output. The only way this will output is if I have one of my groups open. So I'll just show that right now. I'll open up Capture and show. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, all right, so you'll see all of my intensities are at 0, but my intensity fader is at full, right? And I have an intensity effect activated, but nothing's being output. It will start outputting if I bring the fader up. And now I can kind of vary how that effect looks by changing the size. So you'll see if I go now, it's kind of like a pulse. If I bring it even lower, it's pretty subtle. And at max, you'll see it's just a normal effect. And then I can change these effects on a dime. These buttons right here, I explained in the last streams, they change whether or not the effect is a fade or a snap, which is really useful. The only problem is there's a bit it won't update the other cues that are unactivated. So if you have one that snap, let's see. Oh, never mind, they fixed that. Never mind. Disregard what I just said. But yes, you can change it from fade to snap, which is really, especially for intensity effects, is pretty useful. So I can just, another great thing with this is I can just bring the fader down and it's just normal. So if I just want that effect to play on my spots, then I just have everything else at 0, and I'll just bring up my spots and bring up the intensity effect size, and there we go. If I want it to play on everything, I just bring everything up. And I'll do that. Ooh, computers not having fun. Oh boy. Yeah, so if you have any questions during the stream, feel free to ask. Just have to open up this again. Bitmaps. Alright. Bitmaps. Bitmaps are cool. Some people like using a lot of them. I used to like using a lot of them, but now I just use a few select ones. I have a very, very, very large library of bitmaps, but usually I just use these ones right here. And the buttons. I always have these buttons here because they look nice. It's pretty much the only reason is because they look nice. I also have a bunch of bitmaps for color wheels and stuff like that, just because I like having more. It just looks better, because if I remove the bitmap, the stock icons kind of meh. They're pretty small, and I like having the big icons for that. So I won't go into, well, I said I would go into creation for bitmaps, but it's basically just going to Photoshop and make them. But I'll show you how they work. So for a bitmap, you should have 2 pictures for 1 bitmap, if that makes sense. You should have a up picture and a down picture. So if we go here, let's go into the normal color picker. So you see this says amber DN, so that means down, and this one says amber up, and that's, well, I mean, makes sense, right? And so what it means is these are the same pictures, but they're for different states of whatever it's applied to. So if I activate this white, right now it's in white up, which means white released. And if I activate it, it'll change to the white down picture. So that white down picture is this right here. You see it's a full picture, and the white up one is the empty one. And so you just have to have those 2 pictures, and you have to make sure you name them the right way. Just a quick tip, I would recommend trying to have the least or the smallest size file as you can, because if you have some bigger image files, it kind of lags up, and you have like some before I used to have on my beams page for all my gobos, I used to have some pretty highly detailed gobos, but whenever I went to that beams page, it would lag there was like a 1 second lag because it was loading all of those bitmaps. So maybe try not to have super high res bitmaps, because they'll slow things down. To assign a bitmap, it's pretty easy. Let's just go to, I guess I'll just unassign the white one. So to unassign one, you hold shift and then you clear bitmap. And there you go, it's back. So let's assign the white bitmap back to this one. So we're just going to highlight this whole row, hit button bitmap, and then you see here I have a bunch of different folders, and that's because I have so many color macro, or have so many bitmaps. It's just easier in terms of organization to have lots of different folders. That way, if I'm doing bitmaps, if I'm setting up the bitmaps for a color picker, I can just, pick them out. So this is the white picture. We'll go find, white. There we go. So you want to use the white up, whatever the up picture. You don't want to use the down one, because if you use the down one, it's not going to work. It will just assign it as the down, and it won't detect, I guess, the up picture. So let's do that, and there you go. Actually, wait a minute. I might just be an idiot. Does it work? No, it doesn't. Yeah, see. So let's fix that. White up. There we go. And you can just do that for any bitmaps. For every bitmap. For gobo bitmaps and stuff like that, you can usually find pictures, high-res pictures of the gobos from the manufacturer of the moving light or whatever light. For example, I use Verylights, and Verylight usually has a folder full of the image, like high-res images of the gobos that are used in their fixtures, which is super useful because you can just download it, and you just have to tweak it a little bit. Yes, I'm not really going to go into keyboard macros that much. I went into it quite a bit in the last stream that I did a few hours ago, if you want to check that out. I'm not going to go over it again because it's quite long. Alright, fixture profiles. Let's go to patch. And, alright. So let's say you have a light that you use a lot. So let's, for example, just take the VL3000s. So let's say you use these a lot, and you want to make it so that whenever you import them into a new show file, they'll auto import custom palettes and stuff like that. Really useful thing if you're using the same fixture over and over again and making new show files. So what you can do is to select them, you have to choose head, or actually you should be able to just, yes, if you hold shift and you have the box over the fixture you want to edit, you can hold shift and then edit current head. And here you'll find everything that has to do with that profile. So for multi-element heads, you'll have to fill in this bit. This is mostly for the built-in visualizer, and also for when you're putting them in grids. Let's go here. So here's where you, if you're making a new fixture profile for a new light, this is where you put in all the channels, and you can just, oh wait, you can't? Oh yeah, that's right. So here's the name, and then this is where you put the attribute type. So it's really straightforward, really. This stuff is not too important. It's also fairly straightforward. The locate, this right here is when you hit locate, it's the value it will go to. So if you hit locate on this fixture, the dimmer will go to 100%. That's because, so if I change this to 0, then whenever you locate this fixture, it would locate everything else, but it would just stay at 0. And same thing for the default values. Fairly explanatory. These are the values it will go to when it defaults. When you're doing multi-element fixtures, this bit right here, the element bit, is where you will fill in each different element. So if you have like a fixture that has 5 different elements of RGB, then you would actually I'll show that. Choose head. Let's go find American DJ. I wonder if I even have it in this. Yes. Let's edit head. So here we go. So this is a multi-element fixture right here. You can see the attributes here repeat themselves. And right here you just define what type it is. Is it LTP, HTTP? But here you can see this is where it defines itself as different elements, right? So this group right here would be one element. You can see that's red, green, blue, amber, because this is a RGBA fixture. And there's 5 elements in this one, right? And so you just repeat that for the amount of elements you have in the fixture. Let's see. Oh, it's better if I go and use one of these for that. So the range is, how do I describe this? It's when, so if I go to the layout one and look, oh boy. Oh, keep hitting the save button. So whenever you do this, you change the color wheel, you'll see there's different icons for different ranges. So like 001 to, let's see, to 30, or around 30 is white/Congo. Oh, that's not the right color. Anyways, it's that color. It's a range. Man, I am not good at talking today, or explaining today. So you see here, this is the range that I just showed you, right? So this is a split color right here, and it ranges from 001 to 30 for what it's outputting in DMX terms. And the actual fixed position for, this is the wrong icon, but I'll show you how to change the icon. So the fixed color, say this is Congo blue, is the fixed color just means kind of, it's not a split color. So this is Congo blue. Let's change that because the icon is incorrect. And the icon actually changes what you see in the visualizer. So what you see in the visualizer, the colors you see in the visualizer are dependent on these icons here. I'm pretty sure. At least the gobos are. So let's change this right here. So we'll double click on it, go to colors, and we'll just change it for blue. And there we go. And this one's wrong too, so let's just change that to orange. I'm not going to save this one because I already set these, but for example, if you have a moving light that has a different type of color wheel, because I know some moving light manufacturers have different color wheels for different applications, like they'll have a theater color wheel and they'll have like a event color wheel. You can just change the icons. If you're using the built-in MagicQ visualizer, you can just change the icons from here. Yes, and you can change the name you can change the names as well. Yes, all of these are pretty self-explanatory. This means it's a gobo that can rotate. This one is one that's indexed. Really, you just have to look at the manual you got with the fixture and look at the DMX, the channels. Oh man, that long day. You just have to look at the list of channels and just basically put it in this. It's fairly tedious, but it's worth it. So for this one, these are the palettes that are imported if you have your show file set to auto import colors. These are this is what's going to be imported and the values associated with them. So my only problem with these is that there's not enough of them. So usually I have white, red, orange, amber, yellow, I think lime, green, sea, cyan, etc. And if I'm using the same fixture a lot, it's just easier if I have all of the colors I usually use auto import. This again is also really tedious, but worth it. So let's insert right here. Oh, wrong one. We'll just hit insert here, and then we'll change this to color, and we'll name it orange. So it has 4 channels. We'll get the color in, and then you would just set these values here to be whatever color you want them to be. And once you're done all of this, man, I'm probably gonna have to redo the stream to when I'm not as tired. Anyways, yeah, sure. So once you're done editing all of this, you can just hit save head or save as. Save head should make a copy of the head, because I'm fairly sure Chamsys doesn't allow you to directly modify fixtures in its library. So it will just create a copy of it. Or you could just save as and make oh man, you can make another version of it, your own custom version. Media is for servers and stuff like that. As you can see, like Hippo, Archaeos, Catalyst. Yes. All right. I'm probably going to end the stream and try again another time when I'm not as tired and can actually talk well. And I've pretty much covered, well, I tried to cover most of the things. Only 1 hour stream, wow. Anyways, yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or a message on Facebook. I'll be happy to help out. Yeah, I'm gonna end the stream now. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to text me on Facebook or send me an email. Have a good morning.